So the average NFL fullback stands at about 6 feet tall and weighs about 250 pounds. These guys are usually tasked with blocking and opening lanes for the running back in the NFL. Now, despite their importance, in 2024, only about 12 teams use the fullback position, and out of those 12 teams, only about 7 of them use the fullback position in more than 20% of their offensive snaps. This means that teams clearly don't value the position as much as they used to. Right now, only about 4 NFL teams actually use the fullback position consistently. These are CJ Ham with the Minnesota Vikings, Alec Ingold with the Miami Dolphins, Kyle Juszczyk with the San Francisco 49ers, and finally Patrick Ricard with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, we'll compare this to the 1970s and 80s, where nearly every team relied on the fullback as the backbone of their offense. We can clearly see that teams don't utilize this position to its maximum potential. Fullbacks like Larry Csonka, Mike Alstott, and even Franco Harris showed that the fullback position was more than just blocking. These guys were offensive stars of their teams. They were carrying the ball and even scoring touchdowns. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. We're going to take a look at the fullback position and see exactly what led to their decline in usage in the NFL and why exactly it sucks to be the fullback. So if you're interested in that, my boy, consider sticking around for the rest of the video and subscribe. Let's get into it. So like we always do, we're going to break the video down into 2 parts. I'm going to give you guys some history and context so you understand the position, and then we're going to go into my 5 arguments for why I think the fullback position sucks in the NFL. Now, in order to understand why the fullback is such a tough position, we first have to take a look back into the early roots of football. Now, in the early days, the fullback wasn't just the blocker, they were also the runners. They were the stars of the offense, and passing at the time wasn't very common, so teams had to rely more so on brute strength to move the ball down the field, and most of that strength came from the fullback. It was also during this era where some legends was born from the fullback position, most notably Jim Brown and the bowling ball himself, Bronco Nagurski.
He was an enormous man. I mean, his forearms looked like a lot of people's thighs. He was 6'3" and he was 235 pounds, and he was playing fullback.
Guys, back then, these fullbacks were seen as almost the quarterbacks of teams. They were so prestigious to the point that teams had to build around them. You structure your entire offense around a fullback. That's how wild it was, man, back in this time. Now, when we fast forward to the 1970s and 80s, the fullback position continued to dominate. This was the era where players like Larry Csonka really started to take over the position and bring a lot more audiences and eyeballs to football. People loved the physicality of the fullback. People loved the running style, the gritty nature of the position. This was the era that defined smash mouth football.
That's how a white man runs a football.
Guys, I wish I was alive back then to actually see some of these guys play, because when you look at the way the fullback even dressed for a game, you really get to see the passion that these guys play the game with. When we take a look at the A-Train himself, Mike Alstott, this guy was literally the definition of a walking concussion. He was a juggernaut on the football field. I haven't seen a player to this day run the ball like this fullback. I haven't seen an NFL player have zero regard for his body than this player. All he cared about was taking his team forward. All he cared about was scoring touchdowns. And to me, the fullback and the linebacker are those 2 positions that really embodied what it means to be a football player. When you look at the running back into this game, you can sort of relate them to the linebacker, but the fullback and the linebacker are the top 2 for me when it comes to pure grit and passion for the game of football. When we move forward to today's NFL, though, guys, we see the pass-heavy offenses evolving more and more. Since the 2000s, the NFL favor passing the ball a lot more than running the ball. So this has obviously led to the disappearance of the traditional fullback. Teams had to adapt to now what we call the versatile running back. This is where we see guys like Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, even Bucky Irvin coming into the league and taking away all the offensive production of fullback. fullbacks. Nowadays, if you have a fullback, their designated role is to block. Their designated role is to create ways and spaces in the defensive line for the running back to go through. You don't need a fullback that can run a ball or take the offense forward. That is where we see tight ends now almost filling in as fullback at time for teams. So all that now brings us on to my 5 reasons for why the position sucks. And we're first going to start with the nature of the job itself, which is pure sacrifice. As a fullback in the NFL, your job is to put your body on the line for someone else. This is literally all you do. Whether it's blocking a linebacker or taking a defensive lineman out of the game, the fullbacks are the unsung heroes who clears the way for your favorite running backs, all right? And when these running backs go out there and score, they're the ones getting all the credit. So the fullback, again, kind of like the cornerback, they aren't getting any recognition for the work that they put in. You won't see a team say, we have a good fullback, that's why we're making it to the Super Bowl. It's always because, hey, we have a good running back. Hey, we have a good wide receivers. And this is another plight of the position. If you're choosing to play this position, you're putting everything else on the line for your team. You're putting yourself through every problem for the least amount of reward with this position. So you can't use the argument like people would back in the day that you could get the ball sometimes and actually score touchdowns and be a memorable legend in the game. You have one specialized role, and that specialized role is a role that is also being taken away from you and given to other positions. Now let's move on to number 2. You are an afterthought when it comes to playing football. Now as a fullback in the NFL, you got to understand that your job involves getting hit and pushing a lot of big men around. You are at risk for a lot of injuries, and everything that you do is so inconsequential to the offense that you are literally not considered by anyone else on the team. You are there as the gadget position in the NFL, and I don't think any other position is as much of a gadget play as the fullback position when we're looking at the full 11 on the offensive side of the game. If we take away these special teams, we can see that the fullbacks basically have no role. The only role you get is what your scheme puts you in. And even though we do see guys like Kyle Juszczyk get some uses, the majority of fullbacks in the league are simply afterthoughts that are just used by their offense whenever a need pop up. You are not really a part of the team. That's just the sad reality. You guys are awesome. Y'all killed that. We are somehow at 2,400 or 500 subscribers. I don't know how that happened, but please, guys, let's do it again. Let's get up to 3,000 subscribers. We're breaking YouTube. We're trying to show the world that it's more than just trends. We want to actually make football content interesting. We want to talk about things that matter. That's our goal here. Thank you. Let's keep going. Now, my number 3 reason is gonna be the salary for this position. If you're considering playing the fullback position, you gotta understand that the salary is gonna be one of the worst, if not the worst, of any other position in the NFL. We complain about running backs not getting paid enough, but if you're a fullback, you might just have to forget that argument whatsoever. And I would say you should be lucky to just be in the NFL or have a team in the NFL, because the salary for this position is absolutely absurd. And this is not to say that these guys don't deserve to get paid more, but we already know that's how the NFL works. It's not about what you really bring to the NFL, it's what your market value determines. And the fullback position falls victim to this exact fate. When we look at a guy like Kyle Juszczyk, for example, playing one of the hardest working position on the football field on every snap, he's only made, guys, about $37 million in his career. That is absolutely crazy when you can see that a quarterback can literally double his pay in his entire career with 1 year. Even think of a guy like Tyreek Hill, who could make literally 70 mil in like 3 years. Kyle Juszczyk has been in the NFL for more than 12 years, and he's earned just more than the yearly salary of Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson. Just to put that into perspective, just to show you guys the plight, the suffering of the fullback position on a greater scale. Now for number 4, let's talk about the physical toll. Now every position in the NFL is obviously very physical, but the fullback position is one of those positions whose physicality hasn't declined since they lost their value to the rest of the league. This is why I feel bad for guys like Kyle Juszczyk, guys who are playing this once great and forgotten position in the NFL, but are still thriving at it and are still able to carry the essence of the fullback into the modern NFL. So maybe kids out there, if you're watching this right now, you could aspire to be a fullback, and I don't want to discourage you. It is a hard position, but it is the essence, it is the passion, it is the core of football as we know it. Now guys, we're going to do something a little extra for this video. I took the time during the New Year's period whilst all that was going on, met with my friend Rye. Haven't seen him in a while. He's actually the guy that does Trifecta Football. Y'all go and subscribe. But while we're celebrating the new year, I had a chance to ask him about his thoughts on the fullback position, so you guys can get an idea of what other people are thinking out there.
I think the evolution of the game has changed to the point where fullbacks aren't useful.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal.
They're not fast enough like a wide receiver. They're not agile enough like a running back. It's to the point where their use case. Why would you hand the ball out to a fullback who's slow as fuck? He's essentially a lineman.
So yes, that is his expertise on the topic. Let me know if you guys agree with Rye or not. Okay, subscribe to Trifecta Football. But now we're back to the video. All right, let's get to it. Now for number 5, let's talk about the hardest reality, which is the fact that the position is dying. Now the absolute hardest part of having a job is knowing that it might not exist and you won't be credited for your efforts and your hard work over time. The fullback finds itself victim to this exact logic because the position might not exist in the coming decade. Teams have decided that it's more beneficial to move on to a tight end to provide the blocking aspect and move on to a running back or pass catching running back to provide the running aspect and the offensive aspect of the fullback position. Gone are the days of the A-Train Mike Ulster, some of the best and most fun moments in football, and now are the days of the modern fullback who hasn't brought any significance to the position whatsoever. We have the rare exceptions like the Kyle Juszczyks of the world, the Pancake Pats of the world, but these guys are simply just exceptions. The position is on its last breath, and as an NFL fan, as a watcher of the game, a viewer of the game, and any one of you guys out there that actually play the position right now, we gotta realize that the fullback position is almost or damn near dead. So after all that, some of you might be wondering, where does this leave us in the NFL? With the decline of one of the most primitive and core positions of the NFL, what will happen to the league without fullbacks? Now that's a great question, because even though these guys don't get the glory or the representation that they deserve, they do represent a pure part of the game that we've been missing over the past decade. They are the grinders, the unsung heroes that make the game of football what it is today. These are the players who do the dirty work for others to shine, and even though the position might fade, I think the legacy of the fullback position will always be a part of NFL history that we as fans can look back on and admire. So next time if you see a running back breaking a huge run, take a second to appreciate the fullback that is leading the way for that to happen. Take a second to appreciate the guys who made all of this possible. Y'all make sure y'all watch the other videos on the channel, guys. This one took a lot of work. Appreciate all of y'all, by the way. Peace out. Bye-bye. Love y'all. Mwah.